You said our conscience never ceases to be. So either we are focused here or somewhere else. And when we are sleeping, it's focused somewhere else.
Well, your consciousness is always focused. Who you really are is always focused. And sometimes a part of it here in this physical body. But now there's a distinction, because now you're talking about this physical me, yes? This physical me that goes to sleep.
Yes. Where does it go? The
reemerges to your inner being.
Why we don't remember then when...
For the same reason that you don't remember when you first come. This is what we're teaching you here in this Art of Allowing workshop. It's not about remembering the details that would just clutter your life experience. It's about remembering the vibrational resonance which would add richness to your experience. If you will take the time to tune your vibration upward, upward, upward by releasing resistance before you go to sleep, so that you're in vibrational alignment with who you really are, when you go to sleep, when you awaken, you will feel it as well. It's possible that when you take your slumber and reemerge into non-physical, if you are in the vortex as you go to sleep, and therefore in the vortex when you wake up, that in the waking state, as you're translating back into something that's meaningful, you could have something that feels more tangible about what's been going on. But you have to understand that everything that you call physical is a translation of vibration. As we're visiting with you here, we're not whispering words to Esther that she is repeating. We're giving her blocks of thought. And Esther is receiving those blocks of thought at an unconscious level, and then finding the physical word equivalent to convey the meaning that we are offering. And so a similar thing happens. When you reemerge into non-physical, you are intertwined with and interacting with that larger part of you and all that the larger part of you interacts with. And when you awaken back into the physical experience, that's when you translate that experience into something that is meaningful for you. And so what we are suggesting to you, and we think it is really the basis of the question that you're asking here, as more often you tune yourself in that higher frequency through meditation, through basking, through appreciation, leaving behind those resistant vibrations, especially prior to going to slumber. As you take your sleep and therefore reemerge into non-physical, as you come back, you will have more and more to interpret. But the thing is, as you interpret what is non-physical through your physical lens, it's going to come out in physical things. That's why you don't think you're doing it already. And so what we want you to consider is that non-physical then is a state of being that I am achieving. And when I reawaken into this time-space reality where I'm focused, then I'll translate what I know into these physical terms. And in the same sense, that's what we're talking about bringing those physical things that you know as physical life into the vortex. Let's see if we can find another way of saying it for those holdouts out there. People want to know what non-physical is like. And we say we have no eyes, so we do not see, and we have no ears, so we do not hear, and we have no nose, so we do not smell. In other words, when you take the physical sensing out of the experience, you all might say, ooh, non-physical doesn't sound that great. And yet what non-physical is sensing on many other deeply satisfying levels. In other words, so every time physical man is attempting to understand what is non-physical from his physical format, he comes up with fairy tales at best and real distortion at worst. And we are not really big on trying to describe what is non-physical to you in a way that makes you like it or understand it better, because we want you to understand that this consciousness that is non-physical is focused into your physical time-space reality. In other words, with all that we are and all that through those like you have caused us to become, Our greatest satisfaction is to focus out here on this leading edge. And we think that's the part of what we know that most physical beings don't know, that we most want to enhance in a way that you really get it. You all are living the leading edge. You've become so accustomed to thinking that non-physical is perfect and that you're here being trained or to try to prove your worthiness so that you can then catch up with this non-physical of perfection. And we're wanting you to understand that the big picture isn't the way that you have painted it to be. We are non-physical energy. You are the leading edge of that non-physical energy. You're sifting and becoming more, and we're becoming what you've become. And in none of that are we left out of the details of your physical world. So when you want to know what non-physical is like, non-physical is seeing the bluest of the ocean and the clearest of the sky. It's seeing the most beautiful of the flora and fauna. It is understanding the greatest intelligence of the human. Yes. In other words, being non-physical doesn't mean having a departure from what you know as physical. This is the leading edge of creation. So, did you follow that so far?
Yes.
So before the you that you know as you came forth into this physical body, Source was immersed in physical, watching the extension of those like you, receiving the data that you are throwing back, and dreaming the dream of that which your life caused you to dream. Have you ever considered what non-physical was like pre-Earth? It's a new thought, isn't it? So what was non-physical like pre-Earth? It's hard enough to figure out what non-physical is like post-Earth, but what was non-physical like pre-Earth? Well, it was consciousness as far as it had evolved, and it was full of all of the expectations that had been garnered from all of the exposure to all of the life experience that all that is had evolved to. Yes. So now let's fast forward. So now here's non-physical energy, and Earth exists now. And non-physical energy. Does non-physical energy exist separate from Earth? Could it? No. It could not. Is Earth an extension of what is non-physical? Of course it is. Are humans upon the planet extensions of non-physical? Yes. Of course you are. As you explore and become more, now who's an extension of who?
Both.
And is there any way really of separating one from the other?
Right.
There isn't, is there? So now back to your important question. Why can't I remember anything that was before this? And we say, why would you? Why would you reach back when everything that we all are is pointed forward? That's why you don't remember. Whether it's when you're non-physically focused before you've come into this body, or whether it's after you're in this physical body. In all exposure to life moments, there is an expansion that has preceded you vibrationally that you are reaching for. And the source within you is always reaching there. So when you came into this physical body, you were little and you weren't really oriented, but we promise you there was deep, deep knowing within you about this earth and where you were going and what it was all about. Still is there.
Yes.
That's why when you get focused on some program about your planet being in peril, you feel such enormous discord. In other words, it just tears you up to think about your planet disintegrating or your planet becoming less than, because the larger part of you knows how bogus that thought is. The larger part of you knows that this planet is in the state of becoming, consistently becoming. It is not dwindling and falling away. It is becoming. This is the thing that we really, 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 really want you to hear. You cannot train yourself into the vortex from anywhere outside the vortex. In other words, if we were to give you processes all day to try to help you to get into the vortex, it would be less effective than if life just takes you in. Jerry and Esther were driving across from Texas the last couple of days. Coming across New Mexico, there is this most beautiful place. It is called the Texas Canyon. It's in New Mexico. And it's not a canyon. But just the same, it is the most beautiful, 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 beautiful place. And as they drove and saw and breathed and felt, they could not remain outside the vortex. The condition of their moment took them in as they beheld the beauty and the well-being of their planet. Right in the vortex. Now, we don't want you running around looking for things that drag you in. There are plenty of them. But when you find yourself in there, milk it. Practice the vibration of it. Talk about how it feels. Remind yourself this is who you are. Remind yourself that this is the way you're supposed to feel. Remind yourself of the beauty of your planet. Remind yourself of the stability of your planet. Pick up a deck of well-being cards or beautiful pictures of something. In other words, that's the time to stay in the vortex. Practice the inside the vortex vibration. That will serve you far better than anything from outside the vortex you try to do to get in. And there are so many things that life shows you in every day that take you into the vortex. So when you find yourself in there, or when you even think you're in there and aren't sure, milk it. Milk it. Every time you have a moment and you are aware that you just felt a little relief and you're just feeling a little extra lift or high, a little better feeling, stop in that moment and acknowledge, what is it about this that feels so good? Jerry and Esther will sit in a restaurant that feels particularly good and they will play the game. Why do we like being here right now so much? What is it about this place that feels so good? Is it the lighting? Is it the food? Is it the fragrance in the air? Was it our server? Is it being with each other? No, it can't be that. We're always with each other. Must be something else. What is it? What is it? What is it that feels so good about this moment? What is it? And as they reach for it and identify more and more, what they do, they practice the vibration of being in the vortex longer. And this is the thing that we want you to understand. The more you practice it, the easier it is to be there. Don't you know people who are so optimistic that when you try to give them bad news, it just bounces off of them? Children are that way. A little girl in a restaurant, Jerry and Esther were sitting next to them, and the little girl was so taken by Esther. She could hear Esther's voice, so she was standing up in her booth, looking over her booth into the booth where Jerry and Esther were, and all she wanted to do was to see Esther. And Esther began winking at her and doing silly things with her silverware. She was eating with her spoon upside down and putting her napkin over her head. In other words, Esther was not helping the cause at all. Esther was attracting this little girl. And then Esther heard her father scolding her. And her father said, "Turn around and sit down now." And the little girl said, "No." And her father said, "Turn around and sit down now." And the little girl said, "No." And Esther is thinking, please turn around and sit down. Please turn around and sit down. But her father grabbed her by the ankles and dragged her across the booth. And then it was no longer a pretty sight over there. Esther felt a little bad about having temporarily dragged her into the vortex when her father clearly likes her better outside of the vortex, behaving herself. When you find yourself in the vortex, milk it with everything that you've got until you have such a vibration going on from inside the vortex that no one and nothing that is reverberating out there with a different frequency has any access to you. And what you will begin to discover is those old troublesome thoughts that used to make their way into your consciousness frequently, they're gone. Old grudges lift off of you. You stop rendezvousing with ornery people. You stop rendezvousing with people in traffic that are inconsiderate. In other words, when you train yourself into a vibration of well-being, when you become solution-directed rather than problem-directed, when you train yourself inside the vortex, everything in your world will shift because you are the point of attraction. So we'll leave it here. We just want you to realize that the larger part of you exists. And the larger part of you, we have not said this before, but we want you to hear it now. If we were standing in your physical shoes, the soul energy, source energy, larger part of us would be our point of attraction. In other words, we would do anything and everything that we could do to deactivate any vibration that would hold us apart from our prosperity, from our well-being, from our clarity, from who we really are, from our love, from our efficiency, from our effectiveness, from our love of life, from our zest for living.